They're big.
Takes on caution to the wind.
They're loud.
But when he makes a run, believe me, you know he's in town.
They fly. They flip.
Flooring it right now. What?
They crush.
Got to walk that thing out of the arena.
They're monster trucks. And that's what we're talking about today. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, start your engines, and hold on to your seats because today we're diving into the thrilling history of monster trucks. Let's go back to the 1970s where it all started, when off-road enthusiasts began experimenting with bigger tires, higher suspension lifts. The goal? To dominate the mud, sand, and rugged terrain like never before. Funny enough, a small sport called mud bogging played a crucial role in the development of monster trucks, serving as one of the earliest forms of off-road motorsports that inspired their creation. Before monster trucks became the amazing spectacle that they've become, off-road enthusiasts were modifying trucks for mud bogging, a sport where vehicles would race through mud pits as fast as possible. Mud bogging trucks required oversized tires, lifted suspension to navigate thick mud, which directly influenced the design of early monster trucks like Bigfoot. This name stands out in monster truck history when Bob Chandler in 1975 began modifying his Ford F-250. Over time, his creation evolved into what we know as Bigfoot, the very first monster truck. Some early monster trucks like Mud Hog competed in both mud bogging and in monster truck events, showing the overlap between the two sports. In fact, many times you would get tractor pulls, mud bogging, and monster trucks all in one arena. As monster trucks evolved, they incorporated elements of mud bogging such as high-powered engines and rugged durability, but shifted towards car crushing and freestyle stunts. In 1981, Bob Chandler drove Bigfoot over a pair of junk cars for promotional purposes, and this spectacle became a defining moment in monster truck history. Chandler didn't initially plan for the public events, but when footage of Bigfoot crushing cars spread, demand for live performances surged. Remember, this was well before the internet, so for a video to go viral back then, people had to literally share VHS tapes with each other, which should show you just how popular and into this people actually were. After that, monster trucks had transformed from simple modified pickups into full-fledged entertainment machines. The first ever monster truck competition took place in 1982. This spectacle captured the imagination of fans everywhere. And soon, other competitors entered the scene. Names like Gravedigger, USA 1, King Kong became household legends. One of the first racing series to become popular was the TNN Tuff Tracks. TNN's Tuff Tracks was a syndicated monster truck racing series that aired in the late 1980s and in the early 1990s, showcasing some of the most competitive monster truck action of the era. Tuff Tracks was part of the TNT Motorsports, a major promoter of monster truck racing, tractor pulls, and mud racing. I was never a huge fan of tractor pulls or mud racing, so I'd always tell my dad to let me know when the monster trucks are coming on, Dad. I'm going on my Nintendo. Sorry to anybody who's fans of tractor pulls, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there. The series aired on the Nashville network, TNN, bringing monster truck racing to a national audience, which was huge for the sport. Most events featured side-by-side racing, often on dirt tracks or jumps and obstacles, but on occasion, there would be a figure-8 course in St. Louis that would really push these trucks to their limits. I mean, seriously, when I was a kid, you'd see trucks break down on this speedway constantly. That's why they called it the Devil's Curve or the Devil's Asphalt or something like that, something similar. It's one of those, it might be not. I don't know. But this was called St. Louis style racing, well, because it was in St. Louis. Monster Truck Challenge became the first official monster truck racing championship in 1988. The biggest rivalries were between Bigfoot and USA 1, who was always my favorite growing up. It was always Chevy versus Ford, until Fred Schaefer came in with Barefoot and Dodge and kind of dominated everybody. Then you had Equalizer, Carolina Crusher, who was another one of my favorites, and then King Crunch, and then King Kong, who has one of the most legendary crashes in monster truck history. They were all among the top competitors. The series helped introduce coilover shocks, which improved the truck's handling and minimized bouncing. If you look how trucks trucks handled in races in the 80s compared to how they race in the 90s, you could see how fast innovation in the sport was happening. Everyone was playing to win and nothing would stop them. In 1988, Rod Litzow won the championship driving USA 1, his only championship, I think, defeating Bigfoot in a dramatic final. And in 1989, David Morse took the title with Equalizer, marking the biggest points victory in the series. Enter Andy Brass, the short guy who is probably the greatest drag racer in the 90s, which was a revolutionary tube design truck that was briefly banned due to its dominance.
Once banned by TNT Motorsports for being too fast, Bigfoot 8 returns from exile to Tuff tracks.
This was because Bob Chandler elected to use computer science to design the ideal truck for drag racing, while everybody else was kind of sticking to the, I'll just do it myself. Remember, in 1990, computers weren't as great as they are now. But it was good enough for Chandler to win with Bigfoot. In 1990, TNT Motorsports bought out SRO Pace, which owned the competing USHRA series, which would go on to become Monster Jam. We'll get to that later, but I'm sure that name sounds familiar. Former TNT events were absorbed into the USHRA, ending the Tuff Tracks era. Many trucks continue competing in USHRA, but some teams like USA 1, much to my chagrin, opted out due to them shifting from open qualifying races to invitation-only events. This was a big deal because mostly before USHRA bought them out, anybody with a truck could try their hand at getting into the big show, which I thought was kind of cool. The Tuff Track series played a crucial role in shaping competitive monster truck racing, paving the way for modern leagues like Monster Jam. Growing up as a fan of the four-wheeled monsters, one particular series caught my attention more than any of the other ones. No, not that show, although we're gonna get to that too. The Penda Points Series. This is where the fastest trucks went to race. Even Gravedigger got in on the Penda Points Series and constantly lost because of just how competitive it was. And Gravedigger was one of the top 5 monster trucks in the country at that point. The Penda Points Series was one of the most competitive monster truck racing circuits of the 1990s, known for its high-speed, straight-line drag racing and intense rivalries, mainly involving manufacturers like Dodge, Chevrolet, and Ford. And back in the day, the manufacturer of the truck was a very big deal, much more than it is today. And nobody called monster truck racing better than one Army Armstrong. Army Armstrong was a legendary monster truck announcer and commentator, widely regarded as one of the greatest voices in the sport. In my opinion, one of the greatest announcers of all time. Armstrong began calling monster truck races in the early 1980s. Starting with events at the Astrodome in Houston, he became the lead announcer for TNT Motorsports, which ran the Renegades Monster Truck Challenge, the first official monster truck racing championship. His energy and knowledgeable commentary helped elevate the sport's popularity. I mean, seriously, when a crash happened, Army Armstrong would run from the booth and go rip the guy out of the cockpit just to check on him. That's how much he cared about these drivers. That's how much he cared about this sport. I don't think it could be understated enough how important Army Armstrong's contributions to the sport were. He had a close relationship with many of the drivers, but more importantly, with Team Bigfoot. His commentary style was known for its enthusiasm, deep knowledge, and the ability to hype up rivalries, especially between the manufacturers. He was also really good at breaking down tracks.
Look at that, here's the starting line in the left lane of Bloomsburg. Look how deep they've dug down in the track. This is about an 8 or 9 inch depth on the right side of the passenger side of the truck. Now, come over here with me. On the driver's side of the truck, right here, it's only about 3 or 4 inches that's been dug up. So what that does is basically set the chassis. We may have found out why these guys are having trouble with this lane on the track. They're actually setting a little bit cockeyed on the starting line, so when they hit the first jump, it throws the truck out of kilter, and they never have a chance to recover it.
And how trucks handled the tracks. Army, if you ever watch this video somehow, I hope that you know how much your voice impacted so many of us growing up when we were monster truck fans, so thank you. Thankfully, Armstrong was inducted into the Kentucky Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2009 and the International Monster Truck Hall of Fame in 2013. The man deserved it. What can I say? Army Armstrong's contributions to monster truck racing helped shape the sport's identity, making him one of the most respected figures in the world around monster trucks. Now back to the Penda Points Series. The series began in 1991 and ran until 1997. Sponsored by Penda Corporation, hence Penda's Points Series, a truck bed lining manufacturer, the series focused on straight line drag racing, other than freestyle or obstacle courses like you see today. This was all about one thing: power. But it wasn't always about power. These courses would have drivers go over short sets of cars into no man's land, where then they would have to hit the gas, grab the wheel, then take flight over the second set of cars and hope to God they didn't crash. It took more than just hitting the throttle and the gas though. It took finesse. Getting over the first set of cars took finesse because if you went too fast over the first set of cars, you could bounce, or you could lose control, which wouldn't set you up nicely for the second set of cars, which was the most important ones to hit because you would sail over the finish line. It was really fun to watch, and it could cost you the race if you didn't do the first set of cars right. Events were held primarily at Four-Wheel Jamboree Nationals, which took place at the state county fairgrounds across the United States, including Indiana, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The fact that these events took place at fairgrounds allowed for these trucks to pick up a lot of speed and get a lot of air, which led to some crazy crashes. These events let monster trucks across the country attempt to qualify for a spot in the races, so some drivers would drive across the country with their trucks and not even be able to qualify for the race. Ain't that some shit? Some events had over 30 trucks competing, making it one of the most competitive leagues. But only about 10 trucks would actually qualify to be on TV to race. By the end of the series, trucks were breaking the 5-second mark in drag racing, which I don't think people realize is super freaking fast. And not only did Fred Schaefer and Barefoot break it once, but he broke it twice in one show, running a 4.59 seconds. Let's be honest, like Fred Schaefer was an older fella and he was just a straight beast. He was like doing curls and stuff when he would get like promotional stuff. Like he was just a beast. The freaking guy owned bears, okay? He had two black bears as his pet. The dude was a freaking monster. Basically psychotic, but seemed like a nice guy. So I hope you're doing well, Fred. And let me be honest, like the person who stuck it to Bigfoot the most was Fred Schaefer and Barefoot. This series was also known for the dramatic wrecks, including Snakebite crashing into a concession shed and Bigfoot hitting a wall at the RCA Dome. Despite how awesome the racing was, you know that fans were waiting for some crashes to happen. Bigfoot was the dominant force, often fielding multiple trucks under different names like Snakebite, Wildfoot, Bigfoot, Power Wheels. They were the big dogs in the yard. Everybody wanted a piece of them. And Barefoot, backed by Dodge, also ran multiple trucks, including Dodge Express and Rampage. But then there were trucks like Carolina Crusher, who won the first championship in 1991, driven by Gary Porter, who was a humble farmer.
What was that? Feather.
But always found a way to keep up with the big boys. But Bigfoot drivers Andy Brass and Dan Runte dominated the following years, and pretty much up until the end of the series, unless they went against Fred Schaefer. In 1997, Penda Corporation opted to not renew their sponsorship, leading to the cancellation of the series, which very sad day. Despite its end though, the Penda Points series left a lasting legacy, influencing monster truck racing and video games like Monster Truck Madness. Dude, I tell you what, I played that game all the time, but I didn't have a computer that could run it, so I had to always go over to my cousin's house to play it, and then we would race each other. It was really fun. It was just a good time. Point blank period. Penda Points Series was where you earned respect in monster truck racing. In 1993, though, a little show called Monster Wars came along. Monster Wars was a short-lived but unique show, and I mean unique monster truck television show.
Oh, hobble on your way, 'cause this is your unlucky day.
But it aired from the 1990s. It was designed as more of a dramatic and entertainment-focused version of monster truck racing. It incorporated a lot of elements of professional wrestling, where these crazy mascots would trash talk each other before the races. It was honestly kind of cringe looking back at it, but it was an attempt to capitalize on the popularity of professional wrestling at the time. But watching it as a kid, I always kind of enjoyed the mascots. Looking back as an adult, yeah, it was really cringe. You know, it captured me as a kid, so I guess that was kind of cool. These characters were like incredibly over the top, and looking back, it's pretty damn funny to watch.
Equalizer, I'm riding high as one of the fastest qualifiers, so steer clear of me.
Monster Wars was created as a follow-up to the Super Tracks, which was another monster truck racing show. At this point, they had multiple ones and they were competing. The show aired on syndicated television, featured side-by-side monster truck racing. It wasn't as like fast as, say, Penda Points Series, but it was still entertaining to watch, and it was very competitive. The drivers took it very seriously. But again, each monster truck was given like this fictional character, complete with voiceovers and rivalries. For example, Gravedigger was portrayed as a dark, villainous Grim Reaper type figure. Taurus was a cowboy. Predator was an extremely flamboyant cat guy, I guess. I never really quite figured out what Predator was. First Blood was a vampire.
And the only footsteps you're gonna follow are the ones to your grave.
I mean, we're talking about monster truck racing, right? Because it sounds like this guy wants to murder Fred Schaefer. Carolina Crusher was a construction worker. Equalizer was a superhero. Each had their own unique personalities, which ended up kind of being funny because some trucks you could just count on losing, like First Blood or Invader, so their mascots would never get a chance to brag. But I think that also made it fun too, because watching that show and then watching Invader somehow win a couple races, you'd always be like, wow, look at you go. Like, go Invader, get him. Because you never win any other time. But more importantly, the reason I loved Monster Wars so much was because of the host, Luann Lee. Playboy's Playmaker of the Month for January 1987. Now, despite the theatrics, the racing was real and the trucks competed in stadium-style drag races. Monster Wars didn't have the play for keeps vibe that I feel like the Penda Points series had, but it did involve some of the most popular trucks in the world and was the place where Gravedigger became a household name. While Monster Trucks was entertaining, it was criticized for being too gimmicky compared to a lot of the traditional monster truck broadcasts, like Tuff Tracks or Penda Points Series. The show lasted only one season before being discontinued, probably due to the mascots. If they just focused on the trucks, that show probably would have continued on.
Losing!
Many of the trucks continue competing though in Monster Jam and other racing circuits. Though short-lived, Monster Wars remains a nostalgic part of monster truck history, remembered for its unique approach to presenting the sport, which honestly you could still see today in Monster Jam. So yeah, while the gimmicks were cringy, I mean, look at all the trucks that are in Monster Jam today. They're all very gimmicky. And as a 30-something adult, I still love going back and watching episodes of Monster Wars to this day, not just for Luann Lee,
A very special edition of Monster Wars,
but because it gives me nostalgia. But a lot of it's because of Luann Lee. In 1991, USHRA's parent company Pace acquired TNT Motorsports, a major competitor. This merger brought trucks like Gravedigger, Equalizer, and Carolina Crusher into the USHRA events. The Camel Mud and Monster series ran from 1990 to 1994, further solidifying monster trucks as the main attraction. By 1993, some USHRA events were promoted under the name Monster Jam, but in 1995, Monster Jam officially became the brand name for USHRA's monster truck events. That's why you'll see USHRA badges if you go to a Monster Jam event today. These series focused on stadium racing, freestyle competitions, and moving away from the traditional truck pools. This also ended the long-time relationship between Bigfoot and the USHRA. Bob Chandler wanted to be able to film his trucks at competitions, but for some reason, the USHRA was like, no pal, that's our footage, kick rocks. So of course, you know, they ended up not talking anymore, and it's very sad because now Bigfoot's not in Monster Jam, which is where he should be, and now he's on stupid Hot Wheels, which friggin' waste of his time. But I do applaud Bob Chandler for sticking up for what he believes. So let me drive a Bigfoot, Bob Chandler. It would be a dream come true. I got your back, bro. Unless Monster Jam wants to let me drive a truck, then I got their back. Whoever wants me to drive a truck, that's all I care about. I just want to drive a truck. Let me drive a truck. Inevitably though, this ended Bigfoot's mainstream dominance as the most popular monster truck in the world. Even if you go back and watch some of the old tapes of Penda, you get a feeling that the USHRA wasn't a huge fan of the Bigfoot team dominating events, which is sad because Bigfoot is still a household name, yet it just doesn't get to compete in Monster Jam, which is the biggest monster truck thing going today. If you listen to Andy Brass during some of these Penda Points Series races, you can see that the USHRA just kind of always gave Bigfoot a lot of shit.
That was a photo finish. I'm not sure that...
They're going into technical trailer to take it out, Gary.
There's Andy Brass. Looking again.
One up, one down, like two fighter pilots. One's trying to go up, the other one's trying to go down.
Well, the officials are now saying that it was Bigfoot.
They may say that, but that's not what I see, but what I see doesn't count, I guess. Andy, the word we're getting, the wind came in about an inch long.
That is, it was a close when I went in the trailer because we have had several close calls out here, and I'm thinking sometimes we're getting a short end of the stick, so I want to make sure I went in and watched the video. Jack's going in now to watch it. From I watched, I think if we'd shaved the tires much more, we would have lost.
However, in 1998, USHRA's parent company known as Pace Motorsports acquired USA Motorsports, another competitor. This led to Monster Jam events being televised on TNN's Motor Madness. In 2008, Feld Entertainment purchased the rights to Monster Jam and expanded the series globally. Many fans of the traditional style of racing, a la the Penda Points Series, claim that Feld Motorsports ruined monster truck racing by ending the era where independent racers would be able to enter their trucks to race, so names like Equalizer, Carolina Crusher, Barefoot, USA 1 were all names that got left behind when Feld began Monster Jam. They decided to invest in their own trucks and not allow independents to try to qualify for their events, unlike the fairground era where people could just show up with their trucks, make a run, and if you were fast enough, you got to go, which I think was right. It was so much cooler back then. Unfortunately, though, this turned a lot of people off to the way that monster trucks were being perceived. It was much more commercial. It felt like WWE, a very corporate style of monster truck racing. Luckily, though, most of the popular trucks still exist in some form or another today, but unfortunately now they're like under the umbrella of a corporation that just bought the names and rights to all these trucks. But at least you get to still go see like the USA 1 monster truck somewhere today. You know, I guess that's worth it. However, though, names like Barefoot, who used to set records, are nothing more than a memory for most of us now. We won't see them on mainstream TV anytime soon. They typically run on small independent circuits that are not televised. You can look them up online and still see them if you want. And it just doesn't feel the same to me, though. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I still love Monster Jam, and I take my daughter to shows whenever they're in town. I can't help, though, but feel like the way the races are now is not as high stakes as they once were. Dennis Anderson, the driver of Gravedigger, who was a total legend in the sport, has kept all his kids in the business of driving different versions of Gravedigger, which I think is really cool. So in that respect, you know, to see legacy drivers continue on, I think that that's pretty neat. Even though the racing has seemed to become more of an afterthought in Monster Jam to make way for the freestyle and best trick competitions, when I look back and I think of trucks like Bigfoot and USA 1, Taurus, Carolina Crusher, it feels like more simpler times. When the key to victory was just go over one set of cars and then book it as fast as you can and see how much air you could get to win, and try not to crash. Now monster trucks seem more like a circus, which honestly makes sense when you realize that the parent company of Monster Jam also owns Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey. Anyway, like I said, it's always been a dream of mine to get behind the wheel of a monster truck and get airborne. As I'm in my 30s, though, I don't see that dream coming to fruition. So instead, I'll sit here behind this computer and share these stories with you. Unless someone who owns a monster truck wants to send me an email and let me get behind it and, you know, drive that sucker around, maybe get some air, I'd be totally down to do that. I'll document the whole thing. We'll give your monster truck a couple views or something. I don't know. That's all I got. That's all I can share with you is my tiny platform. But I want to drive a truck. Also, unfortunately, with the end of the Penda Points series and the more gimmicky type monster trucks now, the idea of manufacturer rivalries between Chevy, Dodge, and Ford are all but over. Sub 5-second world record runs are over, and we are now in the area of how high can you go, how fast can you flip, and who's got the coolest shark truck. I'm looking at you, Megalodon. But again, I still love Monster Jam and the excitement surrounding the tricks, the constant innovation that's going into the trucks. I gotta say, I long for the simplicity of the old days, though. Maybe they could be like a minor league of monster trucks before you get to the big one that's kind of more like Penda Points Series, because there was just something so cool about just booking it straight and get airborne. Because if you go back and watch, the trucks really did have a hard time just going straight. So it always made for an interesting time, or they just wouldn't get off the line at all. But I gotta say, I'm probably not the only person who feels this way, because in 2022, we did get a small treat when Army Armstrong got back on the mic.
But the best thing they found out is don't worry about the cars, just jump over them. We got a short finish line here tonight. They weren't even on the ground when they went over the finish line.
I'm sorry, I can't quit smiling. It's been 32 years since I've seen Army Armstrong analyze a track like that, and nobody does it better.
And legendary drivers raced one more time in a TNT style race called TNT Unfinished Business.
Story got the jump. Porter trying to pull him on the other end.
I know he's got the best seat in the house tonight. Look at her eyes. She loved you. John passed away about a month ago, and she's a fantastic lady. Good move. Both drivers take off. No problem, driver. What are you saying? They're doing it just for you. They're just showing off right now.
Slowest qualifier, great runs, but your winner is Greg Holbrook.
Carolina Crushers.
That's what the first Carolina Crusher looked like.
Seems near, but lose to win isn't clear. Race with fury, a man we cheer. One will fall to newfound fear. Brave with a vendetta in his soul. Guy with attitude on the roll. Both battle to take control.
And the one and only Gary Porter, Carolina Crusher. What does this feel like? To feel this feeling again, and every one of them on their feet for you.
Fans, I don't cry, but my eyeballs are going to sweat a lot.
It was super fun to watch, and it was a true celebration of monster truck culture. I'm actually going to post the link to it down below so you guys can go watch it if you are watching this and didn't realize that happened. I think that it's awesome. Gary Porter's there. A lot of other legacy trucks are there. So if you're a fan of the stuff that I talked about today, I think that you would really enjoy that. And you get to hear Army Armstrong call races again one more time. I hope, I would give him a job. I know he's old, but he could still do it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this little look back at the history of monster truck racing, this little bit of nostalgia. Share with me your favorite monster truck moments from over the years, and be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you can get more interesting topics like this, and don't forget to subscribe. Did I say subscribe? Yeah, I think I did. Anyway, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.